Today, we are diving into one of the most dramatic and, let's be honest, one of the most terrifying passages in all of literature. We're talking about the story of the first 6 seals from the book of Revelation. So I want you to picture this. The entire story of human history, past, present, and future, is written down on a scroll. But it's sealed shut with 7 seals, and according to the source, absolutely no one is worthy to open it, except for a figure called the Lamb. And as each seal gets broken, a new chapter of our destiny isn't just read aloud, it's actually set in motion. And this is a really crucial point to get from the very beginning. The opening of each seal isn't just a prediction of what might happen. The source material describes it as the direct execution of a divine plan. The moment a seal is broken, the events are unleashed.
So that brings us to the big question that drives this entire epic story. What exactly happens when the final chapters of human history are unsealed? Well, you might want to buckle up, because it all starts with one of the most iconic images of the apocalypse.
You got it. The first 4 seals unleash the famous 4 horsemen. Now, the source describes them not as 4 separate random disasters, but as a single unified force of calamity that just gets worse and worse as they ride across the earth.
So the first seal is broken. A voice like thunder calls out, and a rider on a white horse appears. He's holding a bow, he's given a crown, and he rides out, conquering and to conquer. Now that might sound heroic, right? But in this story, context is absolutely everything.
Okay, so this first rider is a huge point of debate. Some people believe this figure is Jesus, but the source material we're looking at makes a very strong case that this is actually the Antichrist. And here's the thinking. Even though Jesus does come back on a white horse later in the book, this rider's arrival is immediately followed by war, famine, and death. He's seen as a kind of false messiah, a satanic dictator who is imitating the real thing.
Next up, the second seal is broken, and out comes a fiery red horse. Its rider is given a great sword and a very specific, chilling power to take peace from the earth. The source points out something fascinating here. He doesn't have to start wars. He just has to remove peace, and humanity does the rest, with people turning on each other and killing one another.
The third seal unleashes a rider on a black horse, and this one is holding a pair of scales. But these aren't the scales of justice. They're the scales of emergent rationing food. This is a sign of extreme scarcity and famine, a time when every single grain of wheat has to be carefully weighed out.
And then a voice from the heavens cries out what are essentially the new prices for basic food. Now, to us today, that might not sound like a lot, but in its original context, this is an absolutely devastating economic collapse.
See, to really get how bad this is, you have to know that a denarius was a full day's wage for a normal worker. That means people would have to work all day long just to buy enough wheat for a single loaf of bread. Meanwhile, the text says, "Do not harm the oil and the wine," which suggests that luxuries are still available for the rich. It's painting a picture of a world with just profound, gut-wrenching inequality.
And then comes the fourth horseman. And this is the one that really ties all the others together. A pale horse appears, and this rider actually has a name, Death. And he's not riding alone. Hades, the realm of the dead, is following right behind him.
So what's their mission? They're given power over a fourth of the earth, to kill with the sword of the red horse, with the famine of the black horse, with plagues, and by wild animals. Just let that sink in. 1/4 of the entire global population completely wiped out.
So after all of that horror unleashed on Earth, the perspective suddenly shifts. For the 5th and 6th seals, we zoom out from human conflict to a cosmic and heavenly response.
When the 5th seal is opened, we see the souls of martyrs under a heavenly altar. Their lives were poured out like an offering, and now they are crying out to God for justice. They're told to just rest a little while longer until the full number of their brothers and sisters who are destined for the same fate is complete.
But with the 6th seal, the waiting is officially over. The scale of the disaster leaps from the earth to the entire cosmos. We're not talking about just war or famine anymore. This is the very fabric of the universe coming apart at the seams.
The source describes this just breathtaking chain reaction of events. First, a massive earthquake shakes the whole world. Then the sun goes black as sackcloth, and the moon turns the color of blood. Then the stars start falling out of the sky like figs being shaken from a tree. And finally, the sky itself is rolled up like a scroll, revealing whatever lies beyond.
And what's revealed is so terrifying that it sends every single person on the planet running for cover. This is the big climax. Humanity finally comes face to face with the divine presence they've spent all of history trying to ignore.
And the source really goes out of its way to emphasize how universal this terror is. Nobody gets a pass. Kings, generals, the rich and powerful, the poor, slaves, free people, all of them are completely united in their desperation to hide.
And this is their desperate scream. They're crying out for the mountains and the rocks to just fall on them and crush them. And the source points out they're not just hiding from the judgment, they're hiding from the face of God himself. And notice that incredible paradox there. They're fleeing the wrath of the Lamb, the one who is sacrificed. The wrath of perfect, sacrificial love is seen as the most terrifying thing in the entire universe.
And all of this leaves us with the chapter's final haunting question. In the face of this kind of cosmic collapse and divine judgment, who could possibly be able to stand?
So, how does the source material actually answer that critical question? And is there any hope at all to be found in the middle of these overwhelming events?
Well, the source suggests that the seals are kind of a mix of both historical trends and unique future events. I mean, think about it. Dictators, war, famine, that's always been part of human history, right? But what's happening here is described as an intense amplification of business as usual. It's like God is giving humanity over to its own fallen nature, and the consequences just reach this totally unprecedented, devastating scale.
So the theological answer to that huge question, who can stand? The source says, the believer. Not because they're stronger or better, but because they are justified by faith. In this view, the Lamb, Jesus, has already taken the wrath they deserved on himself. That allows them to stand, not in their own strength, but in grace.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. The text describes a world that when it's finally confronted with ultimate reality, chooses to hide from its creator rather than ask for mercy. It really makes you wonder, if the very fabric of our reality started to tear apart today, what would our first instinct be? To hide or to ask for help? Definitely something to think about.